Hi, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms where I give you a heads up about upcoming shows and which date and time they will be aired. If you go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com, you can find links to the shows, MP3 files which you can download, or links to your favorite platform like iTunes, Spreaker, SoundCloud, and all other major sources. You can find information for upcoming and past talk show appearances as well as new book projects at MarlenePardo.com. You can also purchase books and merchandise there. And you can visit my author page on Amazon at Marlene Pardo Pellicer. Due to popular demand, I'm narrating my True Believer stories that I've collected throughout the years in a new series called Supernatural Storytime. You can find links at supernaturalstorytime.com. If you are into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate some of those at NIGHTSHADE Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If you would like to read noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird, you can visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at MiamiGhostChronicles.com. I do want to thank you all for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi everybody, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural. How's everybody doing? Good, I hope. I'm doing good. I know you guys are not going to see this for a little bit, but it's March 12th today, 2020. And I'm sure, unless you're living under a rock, and even then, you're aware that right now, the whole world is facing a crisis that we haven't seen in modern times. Whether it's as bad as it is, or if not, it's what's called the coronavirus, or I want to call it by what I think it really is, which is the Wuhan coronavirus, which is the city in China where it originated from, or the Chinese coronavirus, whatever you want to call it. And it started maybe 3 months ago. And now, as a matter of fact, I want to say yesterday or today, it was officially considered or identified as a pandemic by the World Health Organization. And we're going to get into that. Because even though sometimes we talk about paranormal stuff, believe it or not, there is an edge of the paranormal, as in not ghosts, but really, I want to say things that go on a spiritual, metaphysical level that you see manifested in occurrences like this. And again, whether what's described as because in reality, there's so much out there that we really don't know what's accurate. Or what is just a lack of knowledge as far as understanding exactly how this illness works. Is it natural? Was it man-made, as in a lab? Which a lot of people do believe that. Not coincidentally that it made its emergence at this time. Even though we've had other types of illnesses like the regular flu and Ebola and all these things that usually burn out or they're contained, this has taken on a proportion that, well, it's basically shutting down countries. So we're going to talk about that with our guest, which let's get to the good part, which is, of course, Bill Bean. And believe me, he is the person to talk to about this. But for those of you who are not familiar with Bill, let me tell you a little bit about him. He is a world-renowned spiritual warfare deliverance Minister-Exorcist. He's known as a spiritual warrior. He's also an internationally known author of 6 books, lecturer, and supernatural expert. He's currently appearing in an episode of the 2019 Travel Channel series Holster Files, but personally, I think it's a great show, along with several episodes of the A Haunting series. He regularly joins George Noory on Coast to Coast AM, and he's appeared in the Lifetime Movie Network series I Was Possessed. He's also appeared monthly on the Kev Baker Show from Scotland, which I listen to on a regular basis. And he's helped hundreds of people in America, along with others in over 40 different countries around the world with his ministry, addressing everything from curses, blocks, attachments, obsession, oppression, to possession of demonic spirits. And the reason why I mention that is sometimes being, how can I say, affected negatively doesn't have to be what you think of as the prototypical possession. You know, when you tell somebody possession, they think of The Exorcist or something along those lines. There's a lot of other effects that can come with that, besides just an out and out possession, what we described. But let's welcome Bill. How are you doing today, Bill?
Doing great, Marlene. Thank you so much for having me back. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be on with you.
No, it is my pleasure. On the contrary, and we spoke at length, so much that we were
Sure
talking
did.
about before we started rolling, because there's so much happening in a very compressed short of time.
Yes.
But let me ask you, before we get into that, I know you mentioned something, you had come back from a case not too long ago that affected an entire family.
Oh, yeah. I was, well, I just got in late last night from helping a family in Bristol, Virginia. And it's just amazing how this is happening more and more to families all across America and really the world. And you're right, in the introduction, I've not only helped a lot of people in America, but many people worldwide. And so this evil is truly, and I believe for various reasons, why this is increasing. I believe that CERN has a role in this, and technology, as we spoke before we went on air here. This is why more and more people are being affected, is through these types of devices that can open these portals and literally allow these demons to come through. And more of these demons are being loosed on the earth. And I find it interesting that we see all of these different events that are playing out simultaneously,
Yes.
here on the earth.
Yes.
And, of course, like you mentioned in the opening, the coronavirus, the Wuhan, coronavirus, that's first and foremost in everybody's thoughts now. But it is very interesting how that just suddenly happened upon the scene. And I, for one, don't believe for 1 second that this came from a bat or a monkey or anything else. I believe that this was created in a lab and then unleashed on the people.
And I know that and I'm sure there's people out there that once upon a time people would say, man, that's a great plot for a thriller conspiracy novel. And it's not as far-fetched now. I think a lot of people are coming to the conclusion that something like that is possible.
Yeah, and I'm talking with people that, even family members who never believed in any such type of thing, that are now saying, well, you know what? I don't know. This really could be something that has been unleashed from a lab. And Marlene, here's another thing, and I said this to my wife, and I've said it to a couple of friends here recently. Now, maybe I'm way off base here. I'm not an expert in this. I thought, though, wouldn't it be interesting if they could come up with devise a plan worldwide to load planes and copters with tons of disinfectant that would fly over all these places and release the disinfectant down on the cities and the affected areas, just like you would like a forest fire.
Yes.
Why is this not plausible?
Exactly.
Nobody's talking about it. And maybe, again, this should be something to be considered to try and stamp this out.
Right. And I think, we talked about that right now there's so much information that either is exaggerated or wrong, or that people are, and I think and a part of it sometimes is that they don't know, they're not sure how they're how long does this exist, is it can you catch it, in other words, if on a surface, but at some point they have to start doing exactly what you thought. What do we know about these viruses already? Because it does have certain common things with other types of viruses that we know that this implemented will usually kill this type of virus.
Yeah. And, what I've heard is that your common everyday types of things like Lysol and other products such as that actually kill this. Now, if that is in fact true, then why can't these types of products, somehow be manufactured, put together in these large payloads on these copters and planes that would be dropped over, again, these affected areas, and furthermore, all the major cities in America and different places around the world, that would help to kill this and then prevent further spread. I wouldn't, at this point, I wouldn't care what the cost would be, because, now, as we talked about off air, they are canceling events all over the world.
Yes.
They just today, they canceled the Major League Baseball season. They've sent all the players home from spring training. They have canceled the NBA as of today. They were playing basketball last night, and some of the NBA players have now come down with the coronavirus, so they've canceled that for the season. They have canceled college basketball, and so they're going to continue to cancel things. I'm a little puzzled at the lack of direction. Now, look, who am I? I'm not involved in the day-to-day operations or planning or strategies against this thing. However, from where I'm sitting, I don't see anybody taking any type of authoritative direction in saying, okay, here's how we're going to be proactive and we're going to combat this. I'm not seeing that right now.
And you know what? I think that a lot of people right now are a little bit kind of in shock, because this has stepped up so quickly. It started with like, oh, there's this virus. And I think people have heard that before.
Yeah.
There's an Ebola, there's the SARS, there's this,
sure.
And everybody's like, oh, okay, well, that happens somewhere else.
Right. Sudden, it's not going to affect me. Yeah.
It's not going to affect me. And all of a sudden, this has picked up. And even for the people that, because, of course, they're saying, well, it has a fatality rate of this, of that. It's all of a sudden, and this is the thing that I was saying, even if you don't worry about catching it, or even like they say that even if you catch it, unless you have some type of, you're elderly or you have some underlying comorbidity problem, you should be okay. But then I'm thinking to myself, people don't realize how this affects society that you live in.
Yeah.
What people will do when they perceive, and I hate to say it, that they'll go to the corner drugstore or their local mart, whatever, and the stuff that they're used to finding on the shelves is not there.
Yes, and that's happening. It's happening now. You have places in Italy and Australia that are running out of products there. Even places in America, the shelves are bare for disinfectants and things of that nature. Yes. So we're already seeing it. And as this continues to escalate, it's only going to get worse.
And everybody laughs and says, because I know that there's a running joke going around where everybody's running around taking toilet paper.
Yeah.
And I know that in a way it's funny, but to me it tells you these are people that they're thinking, I got to get it, whatever it is. I don't know if I really need it, because they're so
but I better stock up on it, yeah.
Because they're just like, this is, and I mentioned to you, I was born and raised here in Miami in South Florida. I've always faced the threat of hurricanes. I lived through Hurricane Andrew. I know what it's to have a curfew at sundown, to have the National Guard running through the streets, and and helicopters going over, and the fear of looting, and I've lived that. And that was just small comparison to the whole world.
Yeah.
So, and in other words, I know firsthand how easily this could get ugly outside of the fear of actually contracting disease. It's in the perception of a portion of society that they think I'm in survival mode. So this is going to excuse me doing certain things because, hey, I got to do it. I got to do what I got to do. And the reason what I'm leading to, Bill, is I think that these circumstances will prompt a person, when you have something dark, if you want to say it, spiritual spirits that will push a person to do things that maybe they normally wouldn't, or will aggravate somebody with a certain personality to act out even more aggressively. Because they'll do that whispering, hey, it's okay, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
This is self-preservation.
this
You
is
know,
self-preservation.
you take care of you and all these types of things. So in situations like this,
Yes.
Marlene, the devil's having a field day. He loves it
Yes.
because, again, wherever you see fear and panic and unrest and disturbance and all these negative types of things, and of course,
Yes.
violence and anger and rage, all of this, the devil,
Yes.
he's loving it because all life operates on frequency and vibration. So if we are on high frequency, high vibration, life is good, life is positive, we're moving forward. But if
Yes.
we're on low, it's like the black cloud is over the person's head and nothing goes
Yes.
right. And so the more
Yes.
nothing goes right, it
Yes.
just spins and spins and spins and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's how the devil's able to keep control over people and really exacerbate a situation and really turn it into something gigantic to where it could just be the worst of the
Right.
worst things going on. And until God and by the power of God comes into the equation and stops that, and usually that doesn't happen unless a person like myself gets involved. Otherwise, that just continues to grow into a
Yes.
gigantic tornado like of things. It's just awful.
And I think that people don't like I said, I saw this firsthand, which was it was how easily, and I want to say and I know here I'm going out there, but you've seen all these shows that came up with the zombie theme,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
apocalyptic, how people basically lose all their civility. Um, and I'm thinking to myself, I hate to think that there's going to be people taking their going by that playbook, like saying, "Hey, this is not a
You're
zombie,
right.
but because they've already been primed that that conduct is acceptable because you got to do whatever you need to do
You're
against other human
absolutely
beings."
right. So now being a human being is kind of thrown out the window,
Yes.
and you're going to do what you think
Yes.
is again self-preservation. So if that means you have to kill people, step over
Yeah.
people, rob people,
Rob
whatever,
them. Yeah.
they
Of
will
course.
they will develop that mindset that hey, it's all about me. Now, when we develop that mindset,
Yes.
it's all about me. That's what the devil wants. So the devil doesn't care if
Yes.
you believe that he's real or if you
Mm-hmm.
worship him. He wants you to worship yourself. He wants it to be about you. So Jesus was selfless. So
Yes.
that's what God wants from us, to love one another, to be selfless, to help each other.
Yes.
And Jesus made it very clear. That was his a big part of his life's work, obviously helping people and putting himself last. But it's the devil who's selfish. It's the devil who wants people to have that mindset. And look, I understand that when we're in emergency situations, people can panic and say, well, I got to take care of me and
Yes.
I understand that, but there still has to be a level of common decency and
Yes.
civility and caring for others,
Yes.
because if even though you're faced with a dire situation, you still can be a great help to others and allow God to work through you to be a blessing to others in the most
Yes.
dire of situations.
And that's I think that right that there's I think most humans are altruistic. Okay, I do believe that, but everybody and I think that there's a lot of people that are going, oh my god, is this what I used to see on the TV about?
Yeah,
Because and again, whether it's accurate as far as they're saying the contagion, whether it is
yeah,
people's perception is their reality, and they're going to
yeah,
react on their perception. And if it's what was it, dog eat dog kind of scenario,
yeah,
then like you said, all of a sudden it's not another human being. They've dehumanized other humans, and basically you're stepping over whoever you have to step over because in your mind you're going to justify it, whether like it's for yourself or for your
exactly.
kids or for your family, or it's not fair. Even if let's say that person went ahead and prepared and did what they were supposed to do just in case, all of a sudden it's like that, oh woe is me, you know.
Yeah,
And there's people out there like that where and like I said, as much as I'm concerned with the contagion per se, because I think there's a lot of unknowns versus still what's known,
yeah,
that concerns me more as far as what happens to society. Um, even And I want to say, we talked about it earlier, I always see there's a silver lining,
Hmm.
where people, the reality of it is like a wake up call to
I
what
agree.
really happens in this scenario. In other words, it's not the TV show, it's not a movie. And by the way, no superheroes. Hello, this is human beings doing the best they can in a situation like this. And luckily, we live in a country where where there's a lot of things that we have the infrastructure to help us that's already in place. But
Yeah,
even
it's true.
so, people have to develop self-reliance, is what I'm saying.
And times like this can and should
Yes.
bring out the very best in people. However, there are always groups, and I don't care
Yes.
what type of situation it is, that will always assemble in these types of times, and they will go
Oh,
loot
yes.
stores and
Yes.
all this kind of stuff. It's like
Yes.
Christmas for them, that they
Yes.
will go and just break the
Yes.
windows and steal everything out and all that.
Yes.
And these are the type of incorrigible people that, boy, oh boy, the strictest of penalties should be inflicted upon
I
them. And it's mind boggling. It really is. And so we have that. And then the people that are the price gougers, that
Oh
a friend of
yeah.
mine told me there was a guy online that was selling Purell for like $75 a bottle and
Yes,
things
this
like
is
that. Just
incredible.
mind boggling.
Let me tell you
Mind
something.
boggling.
I've seen it. I remember when Hurricane Andrew roared through here. I remember that. I rode my bike out to my mom's apartment thinking that we were going to go there because she spent the hurricane with me. Later on, we found out that her building had collapsed. Within hours, I want to say maybe 3 hours at the end, everything was still flattened. I couldn't drive out because there were 20 trees down, so I rode out. I saw them looting the few markets, by the way, that were still standing. They were
Horrible.
looting, like, those little marts that you see attached to the gas stations.
Yeah.
They had one guy in there throwing stuff out to the guy outside. So whoever thinks that doesn't happen quickly, I've got news for you. Yes, it does. And
It sure does.
I remember riding bike and it was like, pinch me. I want to wake up. What is this? And yes, it does it devolve very, very quickly in these type of scenarios. And one of the things that also I wanted to touch on, Bill, was this thing about that now spiritually people want to maybe go to church even if they haven't been going there that much, but then at the same
Yeah.
time they might be faced with a dilemma. Is it safe to go to a congregation or a certain amount of people?
And I'm glad you're bringing this up because God really put this on me, I'd say 3 weeks ago. I'm very, very busy. I'm always traveling and I'm always helping people. And even when I'm home, it's nonstop. I mean, as we're doing this interview now, I looked over at my phone. It never stops. I have to keep
Mm-hmm.
my ringer off. So many people
Yes.
contact me for help. Now, I'm not complaining about that. And I praise God for blessing me to be that individual that He works through to help people. And I thank Him and praise Him for it. However, as busy as I am, God put something else on my spirit 3 weeks ago that I needed to start having these online type of services and prayer meetings. So I started this a few weeks ago. I'm going
Perfect.
to have another
Okay.
one this Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern on YouTube Live.
Okay.
Um, it is a way of gathering people, and I always pray that God works through me every single day of my life to plant good seeds with people and
Yes.
plant the seeds to lead them back to Him. And so that's what I'm trying to do with these prayer services is to gather and assemble and praise and worship our glorious God, and also provide comfort and reassurance that even though this is a bad time for us,
Yes.
God can get us through. He can get us through the very worst of situations. He does make the impossible possible. He does hear our prayers. So we need to come back to Him. And again, I think this is part of why the world is suffering these types of things now, is because the world in general, I'm sorry to say, not everybody, but there's been a mass mind propaganda and mind control effort
Yes.
to lead the masses away from God. So I hope in my small way, God working through me, that we can plant the seeds and bring people back to God and give them blessed assurance that God really does love us And if we come back to him, he'll keep us in his hedge of protection. He'll keep us in his covering. He'll bless us, and he'll help us to move forward. But I really believe this, Marlene, that, and look, did God tell me this? No. God tells no one this. Not even Jesus himself knows when the day is that God says enough. However, based on what's taking place now in our world, I have to believe that this great and terrible day is coming sooner than later. Yes. And with that said, I want to do my part as a man of God, a warrior for God, and as a watchman for God, to bring people together and to give them some hope and faith. And I also pray that by the power of God working through me, I can transfer some of that to others to build them up and strengthen them as well, to help them to carry on and carry through all of these things.
And I think, Bill, that a lot, and I know as human beings, we're very resistant to change.
Yeah.
That in and of itself for a lot of people is very unnerving. But this is a time that people have to say, I have to change. And like what you described, even if I can't attend services, whatever, your religion is, your denomination, that you say, okay, there's ways around this. I can go and I can listen to somebody. Once upon a time, how they would have services for people that were housebound, if you were elderly or you couldn't, and things like that. Well, there's the possibilities there. It's there.
Yeah.
And I think
it's very easy now because people could just go to their phone and, bring YouTube Live up, and there it is. And so, and then there'll be a recording of it. So then if people can't make it at 7:00 on Sunday night, well, then there'll be a link that could be sent, and they can listen to it there. So whatever the case may be, I'm just thankful that I can be a part of it and a contributor in a small way to try and help people to move forward in peace, freedom, and victory.
And you know what? I think that because the media out there is, whether they're trying to be accurate or they're stoking fear on purpose, I think that people need to listen to something and someone that's going to tell them it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
We're going to get through this on a spiritual level, even if things look desperate. And I really don't know how desperate things are. But like you said,
none of us know.
We really don't know where this is going to lead.
Yeah.
If this is going to blow over and a month later we'll be looking back on, wow, that was a lot of nothing. Or if it'll get worse. But I think people need that to stay centered. And depending also on your temperament, but I think that all human beings need that to say, okay, this is going to get me through today. Especially when they're faced with that fear.
Absolutely.
And
then when we come together like that, Marlene, when we come together and we have a true intention of coming together in worship for our glorious God, then that helps us with each other. He'll pour out his blessing upon us, but just knowing that you have others that are now gathering and assembling for a common cause and to support each other, it's all win-win. There's no losing in it.
Yes. And that, I think that, and I'm sure you've heard it, Bill, where things get dicey, everybody runs to church.
Yeah, sure.
And I know that there's a lot of people that once the trouble's over, it's like, okay, well, forget church,
Right. Now back to my regular life.
Life. That was
see
close.
You again sometime in the future, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that there's also a portion of people, whether it's because they've never been there or they've fallen away from going to services again or whatever it is that they attend, that there's something that they realize that their soul thirsted for.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think that we're given a lot of, how can I say, the message that human beings that, like, we're asked to deny our spirituality, our spiritual thirst, our spiritual needs.
That's certainly part of the brainwash of today, is that the devil and his minions and the human minions, and they know who they are, and more importantly, God knows who they are. They have been implementing this program, this agenda, since the late 1950s. I have a whole timeline on this, and we are where we are today as a society because of those things, those seeds that were planted then. They're now coming into full bloom. And so the brainwash is to get the person to say, oh, well, there is no God. I don't believe in all that.
Yes.
I believe in myself and my higher power and all this. This is a total mind manipulation, and it's a spiritual manipulation
Yes.
also, because it's designed to sever the connection between the individual and God. And so it's just sad. It's unfortunate. This is why I urge men of their families to really plant these seeds with their children. And if
Yes.
if it's a single parent home, well then, mom, it's on you to
Yes.
implement these things and plant
Yes.
those seeds. But it's very, very important. It has to start in the home, and we
Yes.
have to find a way to tune out the technologies and all of the propaganda from these TV shows and movies and
Yes.
some of the music and all this garbage that is literally poisoning
Yes.
the minds of our youth to the point of total brainwash.
Yes.
And, you know, if we were having this conversation with some of today's youth, they would think that we were crazy people, and they
Yes.
wouldn't consider for 1 second having a type of faith or belief in God,
Yes.
or turning away from these things that have totally enslaved them. They're
Yes.
totally it's all a mind programming and a brainwash, and they're so far gone that if we attempted to have a conversation like this again, they would think that we were
Yes.
certified.
And a lot of it, what a lot of times they fail to ask themselves is, how do you feel? Because they're taught, think about this, like you said, denial of spirituality, or how you feel, or your spiritual needs. Um, but they don't answer the question, how does that make you feel?
Yeah,
Because thinking and feeling are two different things sometimes. You know,
yeah.
our logic can dictate something, but then your heart, your feeling tells you something different. And unfortunately, sometimes we deny what we feel, or what we feel like we want. And I do agree with you that I think a lot of programming is geared to strip us, or denying what we want as spiritual beings, because we are
Yeah.
spiritual beings, and we
And
suffer for it.
it's
I think
getting,
suicide rates reflect that.
oh, yeah. And it's getting to the point, Marlene, that those who try to stand up for what's good and for what's right and for what's lawful are vilified.
Yes.
So we live in this world now, and we talked about this off air. The
Yes.
scripture saying, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil." Well, this is what we're living in now. So the people that try to
Yes.
stand up for what's good and for what's right are vilified. And
Yes.
so the agenda is lawlessness, and you will see people like this Jay-Z and these other characters wearing those Aleister Crowley shirts, do what thou will. Do what
Yes.
thou will is the whole of the law. And that's
Yes.
what is really the propaganda that is being spewed
Yes.
on today's people, especially the youth. Do anything you want to do. You don't
Yeah.
have to listen to anybody. You don't have to have any authority over you. You do your own thing. And if that hurts people, too bad, because it's all about you. And
Yes.
so that is the message, and the devil is loving
Yes.
every minute of it.
Yes. And one of the things that we talked about, and because I was thinking about this, and it's like, I was thinking, once this passes, because it will pass, one way or the other, it will pass. And
Yeah.
we were talking about, we've, and as a matter of fact, we've spoken about what they call transhumanism, which
Yeah.
is the integration of robotics and the humans. And of course, if you get augmented by robotics, you're superior. And I was thinking,
Yeah.
because now they're talking about the medical systems being overwhelmed worldwide, not only because even the workers themselves, whether they're first responders or people at the hospitals, they're humans. They can only work so much, and
Right.
there's so many people coming in with severe symptoms, and even people showing up to do their job. That I told you, I can see down the line where they're going to say, this is why we need robots. Or
Yeah.
this is why, it's better because robots or robotics, you don't get tired. You
Yeah.
don't catch a disease. You don't have to worry about 24/7. You or this robot can do this work.
And
And
we don't have to pay them.
oh, of course not. Of course not. You make a huge
Yeah.
investment up front,
Yeah.
And that's it. And of course they're going to couch that. What we talked about is in, this is how we're going to take care of you humans. Imagine, see, you don't have to expose yourself by going to work or going to a hospital if, let's say, you work in that field
Yeah.
or anything, because the robot's going to be the one that's going to be out there doing that work and being exposed, which doesn't really matter because, of course, they're a machine, and it's going to be better for you. And I could see this down the road, this
That'll be the narrative.
scenario
Yeah.
being used as
Yeah.
well. Do you remember when um, certain companies or certain places, they couldn't open up because their workers were afraid to come in, or the hospitals were overwhelmed because the staff
Yeah.
wasn't there, they just couldn't, either because they were tired or because they have families themselves. And I could see the solution will be, take the humans out of the equation and we'll keep you safe at home.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I see it coming. Furthermore, as we talked off air, there are companies out there like
Yes.
Neuralink that are they are designing chips. They already have
Yes.
these things made, and so
Yes.
they're going to introduce to the populace that,
Yes.
hey, take these chips and
Yes.
let us implant these chips, and you're going to be merged with the computer system, and
Yes.
therefore you will become superhuman. You won't get sick again. You won't have to worry
Yes.
about any of this stuff. And in my opinion, my
Yes.
strong opinion,
Yes.
this is the mark of the beast. And when
Yeah.
these people take these things, they are going to be severed from God. There's no coming
Yes.
back after that. And so I am warning everybody now. You don't have to believe a word I'm saying here, but I'm
Yes.
asking you to research, dig into this, what I'm saying, because it is true. Whether you want to believe it or not, that doesn't change the fact of the truth. And the truth
Yes.
of the matter is that this is the worst possible thing man can do and accept and take and integrate and make
Yes.
part of their body, because now you are linked to the devil's AI fallen angel technology
Yeah.
network, and you are severed from God forever. And I'm not trying to scare anybody.
No.
I'm speaking
No.
truth.
No. Let me ask you, can you imagine, let's say, and I'm sure you've seen it, where now you're linked. I believe there's a diabetic, like a screener that you wear, that basically you don't
Yeah.
have to, and I can see that. But can you imagine in a situation where they say, "Hey, you're too old. We're not gonna treat you." But
You're done.
we already
Yeah.
know what your health is because we've got you covered. We know your profile, whether
Yeah.
it's because you're elderly or because you're comorbid with maybe some other type of disease or illness, and we're like, we're not gonna treat you too bad. You know,
Goodbye.
we're not even gonna waste the
Yeah.
effort or the money to try to save you, what, so you could live another 3 or 4 years. No, no, no.
Exactly.
In
So
other
it would
words, they're
be
gonna pick and
goodbye and
choose.
next.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
next,
Mhm.
are, you're still healthy, you could be a worker, you still have something that we could get out of you.
Yeah.
But if you're too old or you're too sick or you have other illnesses, and what, another 3 or 4 years, no, or rather 10 years, nah, forget it. And you
Yeah.
can't lie. Because there is no because they know
Right.
more about your health than you know about your health,
Right.
because
They
you're
would
being
have it all
monitored.
right there. They would have every bit of information right
Yes.
there and would be able to literally, how
Yes.
in a car, you can hook these scanners
Yes.
up to the computer system of a
Yes.
vehicle.
Yes.
And so you have all the diagnostics right there. You know everything that's going on. It'll tell you if something is, it'd be the same thing. It would be the
Well,
same thing.
and even now it's being promoted as, well, can you imagine if the doctor is aware if you're having a health crisis, for example, or you're going to suffer a heart attack, or you're going to have a stroke, they'll be able to save you. So most people think,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. Wow.
Right. Sign me up. I'm in. Yeah. And
Sign me
that would be
up.
the mindset.
Because
And of
nobody
course,
thinks of what happens after that.
we will have these social influencers which come out of Hollywood,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they'll all be in. You'll see all the biggest stars endorsing all of this. So, the people that
Yes.
blindlessly follow along with those hellions, I'm sorry to say,
Yes.
will follow them right off the cliff.
Yes. And we're being primed, and we talked about this with, like, so movies, programs, sitcoms, whatever, one
Yeah.
where sometimes it's obvious, sometimes where it's okay. And again, that integration between robotics or being monitored is okay. And people don't realize that once upon a time this sounded like sci-fi or fantasy, And it's not that far-fetched, but they don't see the downside of it, which is that you're being always monitored. They know more about you than you know about yourself. And
It's
you can
true.
kiss free will, forget it. It's gone. Who cares about free will? Because no matter what you're going to want to do, if it doesn't go with what the agenda is or what they want for you, doesn't matter because you're not going to be able to do it anyway.
I totally agree. But yet, this society, not all, but I have to say probably the majority, they are programmed to convenience. Alexa,
Yes. Oh,
turn my
God.
lights on,
Yes.
put music on, open my door,
Yes.
flush my
Yes.
toilet, whatever.
Yes.
But that's what this has come down to
Yes.
is
Yes.
self and self-worship and feeling
Yes.
that, hey, well, the Kardashians have that great lifestyle. I
Yes.
should have that too, and I can have that. So
Yes.
again, it comes down to idol worship of those
Yes.
types of people and then selfishness
Yeah.
into where you think that you're suddenly the person thinks that they're entitled to these things.
Yes.
Nobody wants to work for any of these things, by the way.
No.
They feel that they are already entitled to these things.
Yes.
Therefore, they're supposed to be given these things and they can lead the life that they want and not have to
Yes.
have any sweat from their brow
Oh
coming
no.
towards it. Just give it to me and let me live and do whatever I want to do at your expense
Yes.
and forget it. That's it.
That is, people don't realize that part of character building. Oh God, what a bad word.
Yeah,
Character building which is what I talked about, that we've lost, it's been, and I want to say that it's been on purpose, that we lose our ability for self-reliance. And I think people now are having a wake-up
true.
call, certain people, and a lot of which is, you cannot wait for the government or for this or that to come and rescue you. Well, in a case like this, let's say where the whole country, the whole world's being affected, so usually the cavalry that would ride in and help you, forget it, there's no cavalry.
I agree.
Okay, so now you better develop some self-reliance. And I want to say for the newer generations,
Oh,
they don't have that self-reliance where it was like, hey, you have to do things and figure it out and do maybe jobs that you didn't like or do things that were disagreeable that would
yeah.
help build your character. Like you said, because
Forget
it's
it.
very self-serving, very
They don't know how to
narcissistic.
do it. Most of them don't know how to do anything. Nothing. Not the most simple things.
No.
And then they, for some reason, and they've been lied to, and again, this is part of the manipulation, mind and spirit manipulation through TV and movies and music
Yes.
and so forth, that they can have this lavish lifestyle
Yes.
and not have to do anything. It's just supposed to be given to them.
Yes.
It's my right to have this. I should be given all this.
Yes.
And so that becomes a credo, a lifestyle, a mindset. And again, this is a contribution to where we are now in this downward spiral
Yeah.
as a society.
Right. And well, I think that now these because sometimes, like we were talking about, like what's happening right now, how much of it is planned and manufactured versus whatever coincidental.
Yeah,
But there's always, that how things sometimes, even the best laid plans, get out of hand. I think a lot of those mentality, which is I'm living just for the moment and everything, like they're gonna have a rude awakening, because if this evolves into something beyond a couple of weeks or a month, okay, it's gonna be like, okay, well, nobody's gonna come and hand you anything because everybody is just trying to, be safe.
it's suddenly going to get real for them
Yeah,
then.
exactly. It's perfect. It's gonna get real for you because there's no, that pity party, the victim mentality that's so prevalent now, where it's almost like a hero's badge to be victim of whatever, take your pick.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, nobody's gonna have time for this. By the way, it's like, oh, to your victim, well, too bad for you. What do you mean? Aren't you gonna help me? I'm a
right. What
victim.
about me? Exactly.
Yeah,
What
it's like,
about me? What about me?
it's like,
And
oh,
again, look at our society. Some of the things that we talked about before we went on
yeah,
air, our
yeah,
cities. I travel. I've been to
yes,
every part of this country. I've seen it all, and I've seen every major city there is to see. And I'm telling you right now, in the probably going on 6 years of constant travel around this country, these cities are deteriorating, and they're
Yes.
deteriorating to the point to where now you have this epidemic of homelessness in the major
Yes.
cities
God.
and lawlessness going along with that. Now we have in places like New York to where if people are committing crimes, they don't have to post a bail
Bail.
anymore. They could get right out and then go right back to their crimes.
Yes.
So again, it
There is
is the
no.
theme of lawlessness,
There's no
and
deterrent.
the devil is the master, the puppet master
Yes.
of this, to where he's got everybody in that, not everybody, but
Yes. Yeah.
masses of people, the sheeple, believing that we don't have to live and abide by laws. We
No.
can do whatever we want to do, and because that, if it benefits us, where's the harm? What's the harm in it?
Yeah.
And even if it means we got to step over top of somebody to get what we want, so what?
Well, I
That's the
think
mentality.
there's people that the ones that are on the fence, which have kind of been doing stuff like, oh, okay, I don't want to get in trouble with the law, I don't want to get arrested. All of a sudden, they're seeing this guy and they're like, wait a minute, you, what is it? There's a certain dollar amount that you can go ahead and shoplift or steal, and you don't get in trouble for it.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
man, why am I being such a good person? Why am I being such a law-abiding citizen? Forget it. You know?
Do what thou will is the whole of the law. It always comes back to that. It
Yeah.
always comes back to that Aleister Crowley philosophy.
Yes.
And I've spent years in studies about him and about all these occultic type of things and agendas and messages that is carried over in through the black uh, black military ops. I'm not saying the military is
No, no,
evil,
I
but I'm
know.
saying that there are factions of government and military, just like there are factions in many other things that are evil, absolutely evil, and they're designed to be covert and black and dark and evil.
Yes.
And through these types of things, you have the psyops and all that are designed to capture the mind and essentially the spirit as well, because the mind, body, and spirit go together. So through these types of programs, it
Yes.
becomes an agenda and a mind manipulation to get the majority, the masses of people to
Yes.
accept these just outlandish things as normal. And again, it always comes back to self and worship
Yes.
of self and being selfish. And if you have a person in that type of mindset, you've got them right where you want them. So this is
Right.
the beginning of the separation in society, to
Yes.
where these people, even right now, I feel that some of them are so brainwashed, no matter what you say, you cannot reach them
No.
because their minds are already conditioned and brainwashed to accept that as
Right.
normal.
As long as what you're offering them is like, hey, don't worry, I'll take care of you. I'll keep you
Yeah,
safe and secure. I'll give you a little cubicle to live in, you know, with some little bed, you know,
yeah.
and I'll give you a little thing so you can get some food, and but you that's it. Oh, okay, okay. And it's like, really?
But think about this, Marlene, and think about this again, because this is something else I mentioned to you before we went on air about HGTV and things of that nature.
Uh-huh.
Believe me, there's plenty of agendas on that channel as well,
Oh,
and
yes.
that's not a good wholesome channel to where people think, oh, so what? They're just talking about designs and all that. No, there's
Right.
agendas there, just like the cooking
Yes.
channel, same thing.
Yes. Yes. I've
But they
noticed
had a
that.
show on that HGTV, the tiny houses.
Oh my God,
So,
yes. I was thinking that exactly right now.
yep, they're promoting
Tiny houses.
living in these tiny cubicle type of things.
Yes.
So that falls right in line with the socialist
Yes.
type
Yes.
of
Yes.
acceptance that, hey, the communist socialist type of
Yes.
agenda and acceptance that, oh, I can live in this tiny little cubicle here and that's okay. And I can, so
Yeah.
again, it becomes a brainwash.
Yes. Yes. And it was like, I'm thinking to myself, people don't realize, and I've seen this, by the way, um, that they'll have what they consider housing for everyone, which are these tall buildings, by the way, that are ugly because they're square,
Yeah.
and
They're in the
basically
inner
they're like
cities. Yeah.
little apartments, and
Yeah.
people will be so happy. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, once upon a time people would do that, like when they had, but everybody always wanted to move on up, get a nicer place, a house, move
Yeah.
to the suburbs, that white picket fence idea. Yeah.
Not anymore.
And it's like, what happened to wanting that? This was the way people lived when you had no choice, not by choice. Uh,
Exactly. but
And
now it is a
yes,
desired locale. And
yes.
furthermore, I've seen these types of projects in Baltimore, which is just
Mm-hmm.
30 minutes north of where I live, and they are some of the most violent,
Yes.
vile types of
Yes.
places that you can
Yes.
imagine. You just, if you walk through some place like that, you're taking your life into your own hands.
And I'm going to say, and it's all to save the environment.
Yeah,
Because of
it's
course when you
amazing.
live in these basically, let's say a very urban or city center, you don't need a car. You can walk or ride the bicycle or skateboard, and everything is of course the control where, okay, we know where you at. By the way, we know how much
Yeah,
electricity you consume, and you can't go far because how far can you walk or skateboard or bicycle or scooter or whatever?
right. So,
You
so
know,
it's a containment. You're
a
contained.
containment.
Yeah,
And if you're the kind of person that's happy with that, which of course a lot of it, they make you think you're happy, and if you're not, then you're in big trouble because
big trouble.
you suffer for it. If you want more than that, and of course, and I want to say, and it kind of gets me upset because if you're not in agreement with this lifestyle, then you don't care about the earth, or you don't care about the environment, or you want to
You're a
pollute
hater.
everything, and you
Yeah.
want to destroy. And it's like, what are you talking about?
You're labeled as a hater.
Yes,
You don't love people. You
right.
are against everybody, and it's just amazing how that gets flipped around.
Yes,
Anybody that stands up for good and right and law and order is now vilified, and it
right.
is just absolutely mind-boggling.
Yes,
I pray that God Himself will either stop this, which He very well may sooner than later,
yes,
or if it is His will, to appoint someone to come and say enough and stop all of this
yes.
and then return back to Him and repent and get everything back in order. So that's the only changes that I see coming. And it's one way or the other. It'll more than likely, because these people, like I said, are so brainwashed now. You can, even if God Himself sent Jesus
Yes,
to come back and say, okay, this is the way it is, those people still wouldn't listen. So
right.
I think it's going to require something drastic. And am I God? No. Did God tell me this? No. But I really feel, based on what's taking place in our world, that we are coming close to some type of momentous event. And whether it be God Himself that is finally going to press the button and say, enough, I've had it, I can't
I
do any
can't go no
more.
more.
Whatever it may be, that great and terrible day, I feel, is right around the corner.
And that's, and I hate to say it, but we have a lot of crybabies in our society.
Yeah.
That once they get a dose of reality, even if it's versus what they see on TV, that in other words, you're not super. You don't have magical powers, or superhero. You can't fly. You're
Yeah.
not impervious. All of a sudden, they start having this real moment. Hopefully, I'm hoping some of these crybabies will grow up. By this way, it has nothing to do with chronological age, because there's a lot of people out there that are technically adults but do not
Hmm.
behave at all like
I agree.
adults.
I totally
And
agree. And I've
I want to.
personally seen it.
I'm hoping that out of the hardships maybe that come with this is opening themselves up spiritually to stop denying that part of themselves, which I think has been to our detriment. Totally, totally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, take a look. Take a look at society. Our nation has become a nation of junkies, and whether that
Yes,
is
God,
pharmaceutical
yes,
junkies or the street drugs,
yes,
whatever it may
yes,
be, make no mistake. When I go
yes,
to these major cities and I take a look
yes,
around, I see it everywhere.
yes,
And
yes,
it is just absolutely mind boggling that this can be taking
yes,
place all at the same time in
yes,
America and around the world as well. And you have to just take a step back and say, what is really happening here? Because this has gone so far down so fast,
yes,
and simultaneously, all these different things are happening. You just really, how can anybody deny that this isn't a spiritual battle that is
yes,
taking place?
yes, yes. And I want to say, and contrary to, because everybody, when you talk to them about like what you were drug abuse or substance abuse, everybody thinks of the guy on the street corner passed out, and it's basically you see in Australia, even older people, they've
Yeah.
developed addiction problems to prescription drugs. It's
Yes.
not necessarily just the, like, you want to say that guy that's passed out in the corner, or sleeping on the bench. It's infiltrated to people who function barely, and it's
I
been
agree.
facilitated. I hate to say it because it's nobody. How can I say it? Once upon a time, you had antibiotics and maybe some cough medicine, and
Yeah.
don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, I'm all for medical progress. Absolutely,
Hmm.
there's no
Yeah.
reason, but you would also let your body combat it. Your body has
I
an immune
agree.
response. Um,
Now
no,
it's designed because of these power brokers on the
oh
earth.
yeah,
Number one, if you can keep the people doped up, you certainly can control them better.
yes,
Secondly, you're getting their money from them, so
yes,
you are raking in billions and billions of dollars. So that makes these people a very powerful entity on the earth.
yes,
Now you can literally you have them in the palm of your hand
mm-hmm,
because they need you.
yes,
I have seen people that have, well, they've been hooked on a variety of drugs, but
mm-hmm,
people just like with that the Ambien stuff and all that,
yes, yeah,
they will literally panic. I've seen this several
yes,
times.
yes, they
I
will.
got to get home. I got to get that
Yes,
Ambien. I've got to take it now. I've got
yes,
to have it.
yeah,
Their whole world is going to end
yes,
if they don't get home and get that Ambien because
yes,
they've got to have that. So that is the mindset, and that rakes them into that addiction. And boy, oh boy, these pharmaceutical pimps, they're
oh.
loving every second of it because they have that level of control over so many.
Bill, have you ever seen so many commercials about people not being able to sleep? It's constantly all these commercials. Having a hard time sleeping,
Yeah.
waking up,
Take this.
and it's
Try
like
this.
this. It's like, what is this? I mean, don't get me wrong. People, depending on what's going on in your life, yeah, there's times that maybe you have worry. Things are going on, and you have trouble sleeping. And some people are a little bit more high strung. But nowadays, they want to make it sound like everybody can't sleep, and so I'm sure that there's people out there going, that's right. Uh, I woke up the other night. I think I better start taking something.
Amazing.
Case in point, when you talked about the Ambien,
Absolutely amazing.
and
And
things like that.
then you'll have the commercials that come behind the commercial and say, if you've been taking,
Yes.
such and such, you have
Yeah.
a case. And
Oh
yet,
my God.
uh,
Yes.
the commercial will still play for that product. The
Yes.
product will not be taken down. It will
Yes.
continue to be sold, but yet
Yes.
you'll still have the commercial behind it saying, if you've been taking this product, you have
Yes.
a case because it could do
Yes.
this kind of damage. And it's just unbelievable.
Right. And
Unbelievable.
yeah,
I
some of the
look at
things that
all
you
of it
see.
as poison. Now, look, I know that we need some medicines. I
I
understand
know.
that. If
I
people
know.
have, heart problems or diabetes
Yes.
or high blood pressure or
Absolutely.
whatever that may be, I understand that. However, this other garbage, I don't
No.
understand it. I don't accept it. I don't endorse it. I would never put it into my body. I see it
No.
as total poison.
Yes.
And, I urge people to please try, clients that I'm going to help.
Yes.
And they tell me that some tell me that they're taking some of these things.
Right.
I try to urge them to get off of that and get away
Yes.
from that because
Yes.
not only is that a stronghold
Yes.
over the mind and the physical body, it becomes a spiritual stronghold as well.
And I'm not going to say all the time, Bill, but believe it or not, a lot of times taking certain drugs, whether they're prescription or not, detaches people from their feelings.
That's right.
And you need to tell them, you know what? You're going to stop taking this, and there'll be times that you're going to feel bad. But it's okay. Feel bad. Feel like crying. If you have to cry, cry. But feel it. They're so afraid of engaging, of feeling the good and the bad, even if it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable, or sadness or anger or anxiety, that they'd
Yeah.
rather detach themselves and live like in this numbness.
But what it
Uh,
is, it's an escape from reality. That's
yes, it
exactly what it
is.
is. And
It
that's
is.
really the crux of alcoholism
Yes.
and drug abuse. It's an escape from reality. So
Yes.
this is, like you're saying, this is where a person has to stand up and deal with whatever it is. And if you
Yes.
can't deal with it, well, then contact somebody that can help you to
Yes.
deal with it.
Yes.
But I urge you, don't take that road into these types of things because it is a dark road, and like Marlene's saying, it is slowly pulling you apart from your relationship and connection with and to God.
Bill, don't you see that there's, and I'm sure, I'm almost positive, but I want to ask you anyway, in a lot of the cases that you've gone to where either substance abuse or some type of addiction is the
Yeah.
open door that where they get some type of problem with some type of spiritual attachment or oppression or anything like that?
Yes. And then in other cases, I've seen to where a person will be affected for years and years because they may have been molested as a child.
Yes.
So they had that high level of trauma that took place in
Yes.
childhood. And then in later years, they become a drug addict or an alcoholic, or they
Yes.
get hooked on prescription pills or whatever it is, prescription drugs, due to trying to escape the reality and
Yes.
trying to deal with what happened, which becomes a spiritual stronghold in itself. Because
Yes.
when a person suffers a high level of trauma in that way, the demons who are already on the perpetrator now
Yes.
will come on to the victim
Yes.
because of that high level of trauma that's been achieved.
Yes.
So again, it goes back to frequency, vibration, and furthermore, when a person is exposed to that level, that high level of trauma,
Yes.
secretions and blood will come out of the pineal gland. New Agers call the third eye the pineal gland, and the adrenal glands as well. And
Yes.
demons are attracted to that like candy.
Yes, yes, and people don't sometimes they think of us. That's what I'm saying. That there's much what happens to us in our physical body translates into the spiritual level, even though you can't
Yeah,
see it.
correct.
But it does, and that's why sometimes it's so important. How do you feel? What are you thinking? As far as what's attracted to you, both on a positive and on a negative level, which getting we're going to circle back to what you were saying about that, that you're going to be doing these things on YouTube where
Yeah,
people, it's like, stop trying to think it out. Sometimes you need to be there and just listen and soothe your soul.
yeah.
And like I want to say, like, undo this knot that people sometimes have inside of themselves as far as their feelings and their spirituality. Like, undo that knot and just be there. Um, and
I totally agree.
forget all the stuff that you're told that you don't need to be that, or that you're a weak person if you have religious or spiritual beliefs, whatever the case might be, because there's something wrong with you. What you need that? Yeah, I think as human
I
beings
totally
we
agree.
all do. And you said, so if you could repeat it, you're going to start. What is it? This Sunday coming up? Is that going to be the first broadcast that you're going to have?
For for YouTube, the previous weeks, I tried it on an app called WebEx, and then I
Yes.
actually tried it on Facebook Live last Sunday. And for some reason, Marlene, it would not let me go live,
What a
and so I
coinking,
had,
huh?
isn't that something? And so I
Yeah.
had to jump back to WebEx, and I had it over there. But this Sunday, I want to do it for the first time on YouTube Live, and it's at 7 p.m. Eastern. And I'm really hoping that people will, and of course, I'll be posting it on the
What
social
what
media and
is
all that stuff.
is your channel on YouTube? Because
Yes.
they can look at the archive. If they can't attend a live, they could listen or look at the archive,
Yeah.
right?
So all they have to do is punch my yes, and all they have to do is punch my name in on YouTube, or
Okay.
go to my website, billbean.net, and the YouTube
Yes.
channel is on there as
Yes.
well. So there's many ways to find me and get
Yes.
to this. And like Marlene says, if you can't be there at 7 o'clock, well then there will be a link that will
Yes.
I'll post on social media and even on my website as well, to where
Yes.
people can see that, because it's very important that
Yes.
people really come and be fed, come and be spiritually fed. And that's what
Yes.
this is about. There is no agenda other than to have people gather and assemble
Yes.
and worship our glorious God and pray for each other as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that, especially in times like this, it's really important where there's so much that's unknown or undecided, that people need to do that introspection, that spiritual introspection about where they're at.
Yeah.
Um, and I want to say, because I'm
Sooner than later.
well, yeah, but I'm an optimist, And I know that
Hmm.
we're going to come out at the other end of this. It's just what
I
happens to
believe
us from
that.
point A to point B.
I
Um,
totally agree.
so, again, thank you so much, Bill. It has been wonderful to speak to you again, and I want to wish you the best of luck. And also, what's your website address for my podcast
Okay.
listeners?
And I want to thank you again. Boy, the time always goes by
Yes, it
fast,
does.
doesn't
It does. It sure
it?
does.
And God bless you and your family, Marlene, and everybody
Thank
out
you.
there that is listening in and that will listen and watch this.
Yes.
Um, Thank you again. Look forward to coming back again. And for anybody who's out there who may be in need, if you're in spiritual distress and
Yes.
whatever that means, Marlene named off all the different types of things that could be affecting a person spiritually,
Yes.
and whatever it may be. Don't hesitate to contact me. You can reach me at billbean.net, www.billbean.net. And you can email me directly from the site, and I will get back to you, or one of my assistants will get back to you. And I love people, do anything to help anybody, and that is what God has called me to do.
Yes.
So I will absolutely do my very best by the power of God to provide assistance to whomever is in need.
Again, thank you so much, Bill. The best of luck to you, and it has been a pleasure to speak to you.
God bless you, Marlene. We'll talk again soon.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Let me tell you, it was, believe it or not, I had planned this interview with Bill before this coronavirus thing took off. It's really originally when it started coming out, it's like everything. You hear so many things like oh no, there's Ebola, the Zika. I remember when the Zika thing. The reason why I remember the Zika because it was mosquito borne, and here in South Florida, there was a big thing like, oh, make sure there's no standing water and the babies, and if you're pregnant. I mean, I remember all these things. So when all these things started coming out about this, it was like there's concern, but you're thinking this is going to go down the path of these other moments about some new disease that's come out. But anyway, my point being that um, when I asked Bill to speak again, this was in the background. This was we had no idea that we were going to talk about this. I thought we were going to talk about his cases and everything and his travels and what he's seeing, because him being, I know he helps people and families remotely, but there's other times that he goes, so he does a lot of traveling, and he goes directly to help some families that need that one-on-one intervention from him. And but we started, as a matter of fact, we talked about it before. We were like, I'm like, Bill, what's this? Have you heard this? And we were like comparing notes and what we thought about. And because, like we were saying, there's a lot that we know, there's a lot that we don't know. There's part of us that was saying, is this accurate, or is this information that's being given out, is it hyped? Is this fear mongering, and people are getting worked up about something, or is there a bit that we need to pay attention to common sense wise, versus running around like with your hair on fire. And we were talking about the effects of what comes with this. And as I was saying, because I lived here in South Florida, and every time there's a hurricane, and sometimes, I mean, I've lived through stuff that hasn't been an out and out hit, but electricity goes out, the let's say the traffic signs don't work for days, and first responders are not the same as they're not available. We become so used to being, hey, they're going to be here within minutes. 911, somebody's going to show up quick. And so I've lived in that scenario where that is gone, and it's gone. All right. And even here, they'll say it, even when we've had a hurricane approaching, that they'll say, look, once the wind reaches certain miles per hour, police cannot respond. Emergency services will not respond, not because they don't want to, they are not allowed to. But I've had I back in '92 when I was here in the southwest part of Dade County, which is the one that got slammed and landmarks got obliterated. I personally seen that within hours that you would say, man, people are looting. I've seen that firsthand. Okay. My mom's apartment, even though it was crumbling, it was on a fourth floor, she got her apartment looted. She had this. So I already I've already lived through that. So I kind of understand it a little bit, even though and back then, the understanding was that this was just a small portion, a part of a city within the whole United States, forget the world, that was being affected. So you knew that everybody was coming over here. Rescue was just imminent. FEMA, I mean, everybody. They brought in everybody. Okay, we had the National Guard because again of the looting and to keep people out of certain places, and they had a curfew. And even then, I saw how easily it could devolve. Uh, you know, I remember, you would go outside, and all you would hear would be generators going at night. Everything was dark because all the lights are gone. There's no lighting out anywhere. And all you would hear is the hum of generators of people afraid to leave their homes, even if the homes were kind of like badly damaged, because they were like, I can't leave the few stuff that I got left because if not, it's going to be gone. So people were basically sheltering in place if they had water, taking cold baths, because of course no electricity, so your water heater wasn't working. Of course, a good thing in a way was because of that happened in August. So, but still, man, a cold shower is a cold shower. Believe me. So I've seen firsthand a very lesser degree of what could happen with this scenario with this coronavirus deal going on, and which we really don't know what direction this is going to go in. Like we were talking about, besides the fear of contagion, it's the fear of what happens amongst those that you live with when they're faced with not a reality. Like we were talking about, you see all these million shows like The Walking Dead and all these zombies. Yeah, the zombie is basically the portrayal of, what happens when all of a sudden the niceties, the civility, the there's no law and order. What happens to people? What do they do? How do they act? When that survival thing comes about. And that's the thing. Part of my concern, personally, besides, like I said, taking care of myself and my family from contagion, is the perception of others around me, of what they think that they are allowed to do because now they consider that they're in a survival scenario. And that, I think, is going to be a real wake-up call for a lot of people, because that's another thing that I learned, because of the hurricane threat and when electricity, that a lot of people think that the government's going to come like right away and give you help, and I learned you couldn't do that. Yeah, eventually it'll get here, but you have to be self-reliant. You have to stock up on food. I mean, I remember my kids were little, and even then, I think, what was it, when Katrina blew in, because it came in as a one through Miami before it went, and it, devastated New Orleans. That I was making breakfast on my barbecue outside because I had no electricity. That was it. And my neighbor was nice enough. He had a generator. He threw me over a line just so I could keep my refrigerator going, so I wouldn't lose my food. But I was cooking for my kids in the barbecue. Of course, they're children. They think it's all great. But I remember like making breakfast, like eggs and going out, and none of the everybody was like, you come to a four-way where the lights don't work, and you're hoping everybody does that four-way stop sign deal. And I'm thinking, okay, and I know that it's not that bad. What happens if all of a sudden, because people that thought that weren't paying attention or didn't believe it or didn't care, this goes beyond, let's say, a week or 2 weeks. Maybe it's 3 or 4 weeks before they say, hey, you know what? It's leveled out. The curve of whether it's the amount of people that are being tested and found to have it, or deaths or whatever. In other words, it'll go and then come down and it's leveling out. And okay, we think we got a grip, even though, of course, they're saying an actual vaccine for it is more than a year away. And if you listen to some of the things, if you're of a certain age and you're healthy, normally healthy, you could be symptomatic, or you could just have the equivalent of like a bad cold. Again, there's so many things that are like now, things that are being shut down. What happens when people, let's say, they tell them, hey, your kids, no school for the kids. What if you have young children? You have nobody to take care of them. So you have to tell your boss, I can't come into work. I have nobody to take care of my children. And this is not like, 3 or 4 days. I'm going to use up my vacation time, okay? It's 3 or 4 weeks later, and they still are not allowing kids to go back to school. And you have no choice, but you can't go into work, or at least one of the parents, or God forbid, you're a single parent household. All these things that I'm telling you that could come into play, where not everybody, because I think most people are civil and they understand the advantages of working together. Because I saw it, by the way, when like I said back in '92, when Andrew, they had groups of people in a neighborhood that they were armed, and they were like, they didn't want to have a problem, but they basically took turns guarding to make sure that nobody would go in there after dark, especially to loot, or if that person, let's say a house, they had to go somewhere. Remember, back in '92, cellular phones were not like they are now. It's common. So sometimes people, to make one phone call, they had to travel out to find a public phone to make a phone call. So basically, you were asking your neighbor, hey, keep an eye out for my place, because I need to go make this phone call. I need to call this insurance company. I need to do this. I need to do that. And I saw that cooperation, by the way. I saw that cooperation on people who were all on the same page or living in that same neighborhood. And I'm thinking, okay, if we extend this beyond a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, while they figure it out, even if on the 5th week it's figured out and they start letting people go back to work and kids go back to school, and they start reopening all these venues, and everything is like, okay, keep washing your hands, but okay, we're a lot people, believe it or not, in the middle of all this, I hate to say not everybody, but there will be some people who kind of think, is this the forever? Is this another show of The Walking Dead where, oh my God, this will be years? And that concerns me a lot, because it's that what is it, doggy dog world, and I don't think that helps us a lot at all. And a lot of people think that it's justified, again, because they think, hey, I got to do what I got to do. And me and Bill were talking about that at the beginning, that you might think of this whole situation as having, it's strictly a material world thing, but that if I do believe that there is ripples on a spiritual, metaphysical level, as far as how people feel, what people expect or want to have happen. That, in other words, that can turn you from a person which is doggy dog, it's end of the world, apocalyptic, I'll do whatever I need to do, this is horrible, okay, versus a person that says, this is not good, and I'll figure it out, and I'll protect my family, but it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And they have what I call this faith. How's that? Faith that everything will be okay. That they understand, yeah, I'm not going to sit on my sofa and like, ding, everything's done, good, be on your way. That they're going to have to make efforts and do what they need to do, but at the same time that they have this faith that everything will be okay, that they'll be protected, and that despite maybe if they see others around them doing things that are wrong or harmful, that they don't see it as excuse like, okay, well then that's okay for me, because it'll be like, I'm going to still know that at the end of this I'm going to be okay, and God is going to take care of me and my family, and whatever however difficult it might be, which it might not be. Again, this is a big question mark, folks. It's like we don't know where this is going. At the end, I'm going to still do the right thing as best I can, because at the end I know I have faith that I'll be taken care of, and I will be doing the best that I can with what I got. Nobody can ask you to do more than that. Okay, but there, as far as well, I guess what I'm saying is that makes the difference between somebody that is willing to endure and do the best they can when things are difficult, versus the person that runs around like, oh my God, and they're just crazy, and to them it's the end, and I'll do whatever it takes, because they really don't think that there's any good way out of this. And at the ends justify the means. Even if in the end it turns out to be like, it wasn't that drastic, it wasn't that world ending, it wasn't everything that you justified in your head that you did or were thinking of doing against another human being. Or, and this is something a lot of people think, okay, well, if I loot, people that are looters, and we loot, and I loot a store, I'm not hurting anybody. It's a company or an entity or whatever. You know what? It's a slippery slope downwards from there. Okay? Because all of a sudden, it starts with that, and then the next thing, you're looting your neighbor's house, or you're going into somebody's property to take something from them, even if they're there. And maybe a month before, you would have been thinking, oh, I can loot from a store. I mean, it's just a store. Nobody's in there. I'm not hurting anybody. The next thing you know, you're stealing from your neighbor or from another person, or you're beating them up because you can, because you want something they have, or you think you need it. And that's why I'm saying that sometimes we how can I say it? We kind of figure out, we get down to the semantics of stuff, and we say, well, I'm not really hurting anybody. But if you want our society, which I think, and not everything, because like I said before, I'm an optimist, is in a lot of trouble before, this is the way to unravel it. Okay, this is the way to unravel it. And I am a believer in law and order. I'm a humanist. I believe in human beings. I don't believe in the cut and dry, but I do believe in law and order. And I think that when that unravels and society falls apart, it's not good for anybody. As a matter of fact, a lot of the people that start doing that end up getting bit in the butt. And I'll give you an example, like when they had the French Revolution. A lot of the people that started the original French Revolution ended up losing their heads on the guillotine, because it came full circle and they were done away with. So I'm hoping that my next few shows, this will be different. That we'll be talking about things are better, or will look to be better, or the best. Man, they really exaggerated this, and everybody will be kind of upset, like, oh my God, I can't believe that they made us think that this was so earth-shattering. People, the lockdown, the whole world, and man, it was concerning, but they overblew it. Okay, that's what I wish it happens. Honestly, that's what I'm hoping for, and that of course all these scientists will work on getting a vaccine or addressing it, or some type of medication, whatever. Because from what I understand, some of the symptoms is, of course, that you get pneumonia-like symptoms. Your lungs are compromised, or whatever. And then that's it. And then everybody will be like, like, it's media, the government, that's okay. And then we'll go on. That's what I'm hoping for, that you're going to hear from me. Like if you didn't know, you're not going to need to hear from me, because we're going to get 24/7 every which way on any place that you look at, whether it's a regular channel, streaming, even on YouTube. Believe me, I've looked at some people, and you see some people saying, let's remain calm. You know what that thing is, be calm and carry on. And then there's the other ones like, oh my God, brace your doors, because any minute now the Mongol horde will come tearing down your sidewalk and want to take all your stuff. And it's like, what? that's how it's like, oh, no. I'm an average person. Like, yes, I believe in precautions and, preparing. But, hello. So, yeah, I'm hoping that at the end we'll be upset and maybe have a good laugh, maybe a couple years down the road when we look back at this time, or learn valuable lessons. By the way, I'm gonna interject this here in a segue. It's really funny, but recently I had not seen, there's a show, I think it had 6 seasons. It's already finished. It's called The Last Ship, and I had been meaning to see it, and I had just gotten around to it, and it finished. I want to say it has 6 seasons. It just so happens it's about that there's a virus strain that basically decimates populations around the world. And of course there's people that are asymptomatic, and then it was something like an Ebola type of strain of virus, and of course, but it's deadly. It just does away with millions of people around the world. And of course, it's a very interesting show, but don't watch it, because you're probably liable to wig out. If you see it now, you're like, oh. But it's like, you look at those possibilities, even though it's Hollywood's version of it. And again, you see scenarios where you're thinking, man, I could never think that human beings would treat other human beings like that. And you're thinking, man, I really hope this is just all Hollywood land. Some great writer back there going, we need a lot of drama. Think of something extreme. Again, guys, thank you so much for being part of my audience. Again, I hope that God is with us through all of this. And that you get comfort from wherever you need it. Even the people out there that are atheists, or that are agnostics, or whatever the case might be, that whatever is going on, that that we all come out at the other end of it as being the best human beings that we are capable of being. Take care.